Welcome back to another week of Eye of the Storm, a Guelph Storm podcast with myself, Ryan Drury, the voice of your Guelph Storm on Rogers TV. And I think almost we should maybe change the name of the podcast for a week. Like, should we call it the Cup of the Jockstrap podcast? I don't know. It was a very exciting weekend in the Royal City as the Royal City Jockstraps took to the ice for the first time. And one of the people who was a big driving force behind this initiative, I'm joined by now on the show. He is the Vice President, Business Operations with your Guelph Storm, Matt Newby. Matt, how are you, man?
I am very good. And before we get too far in, I want to kind of quit. You might be getting to this, but thank you guys and thank Rogers for put. It was great, and I was watching. I'd be in my office, and I was just kind of checking how the game would be called and stuff like that. And you guys were fantastic with it, and hearing the Royal City Jockstrap stuff called, and looking at the graphics that Ryan put together and you got your team put together were fantastic. And I can kind of step back on that, listening to Paul Osborne tripping over some of the announcements because he's been doing it for 25 or 30 years, and he's so used to saying Guelph Storm. It was really neat to see everybody kind of work together on that. We're really happy with the results.
Well, hey, I'm happy to hear. I mean, it was a fun thing to put together, and Mark and I were teasing, each other like we each had one little slip up during the game. So yeah, it was
That's
a it was
good.
a hard thing to wrap your head around, but I think that we did a great job. And I mean, Ryan Manahan, our producer, makes it so easy for us, and it was a fun thing. And like, let's start there because a lot of people. I had so many messages from people not only throughout the league that I know, but just fans messaging me and going, what is this? Like what's going on with this thing? I know you had a huge hand in this. Tell me a little bit about what inspired this idea.
This came from a lunch meeting that we had with our staff, with our team. Hunter Sutherland, who I'm sure will be happy to get a shout out, and he does a great job. And I've known Hunter going back, to the old office, so 8 or 9 years when he was a high school co-op student. And Hunter's kind of been our Jersey guru for a lot of the changes that we've proposed and stuff like that. So he came to me kind of sheepishly because the idea, and you can kind of guess where he was going, and said, sat down beside me and said, Matt, I've got this idea. And he didn't know what I was going to say. And he started going through it. And I was listening and listening and listening. And he said, there's a few teams that have done this. And what would you think of changing the name for a rebranding for a weekend? I said, yeah, I think let's put some thought into it. And he said, well, one of the ideas I have would be, he's kind of nervously putting his head down. And he's like, Royal City Jockstraps. And I sat for a second. And I think he thought, he didn't know what to expect, I think. But I think he expected that I would say that's crazy. And like the same reaction we got from some of the traditionalists that were here when we got a little bit of feedback. And I said, no, it sounds great. Let's see where we go with it. Again, just because it's different. It's off the wall. It's something that nobody expected. And especially people that know me as a person, I think to have something that's off the wall was definitely not, in character for me. So that was the start of it. And then that was back in late May, actually, at the Memorial Cup. And then from there, it was working on the logo stuff. And I don't know if you got another question from that point, but the logo stuff, we had somebody by the name of Darius Navarro, who was a co-op student, full-time co-op student from Conestoga design student last year. So in 23-24. And we gave him all these concepts. Not a hockey guy, not a hockey fan. I think he became a hockey fan working for us. And we said, what do we do? What do you do for a jock strap logo? We said, the jock's got to be part of it. The shield's part of it. I'm going to keep looking up at your hat as we're doing this. The shield's got to be part of it. And who uses a shield? So we said, knights use a shield. Let's work with that. Let's kind of do something with, silly with a knight. And he did all the renderings, came back with the design. And he said, here it is, a few knights. And we looked at it, nothing jumped off. And then it's the obvious problem with that is we play the Knights. The Knights are already a team in our league. And he said, but I've also got one other one. And he said, it's a peanut. And I said, and kind of trying to get to the nuts of that. Excuse the pun. And we kind of started working backwards again on that. So he said, what about the peanut and the jock protecting the peanuts, and kind of worked with that. And so that was kind of the start of it. And then from that, it was another thing that I liked kind of as in terms of managing the staff, it really energized our staff for that weekend. Everybody kind of top to bottom was excited to see this, excited to make this happen because it hasn't happened in our league. There's 4 teams that have done a great job with it out west. but it hadn't happened in the OHL. So it really did energize people, and just to kind of come up with the ideas, come up with the mascot, and come up with putting the logo everywhere we could. Our goal being digital, and as much signage, pardon me, as we could do was to change it to, and it's such a stark, a huge contrast. Our regular colors to the bright orange again. So that was our goal, and like I said, it energized everybody. We hope that it energized the crowd from the really, really positive response that I got almost overwhelmingly. It did, and we had fun with it. And I think that's at the root of the whole thing. It was fun, and we wanted to have fun. We want to have our games fun, and I think we accomplished that.
I think you did too. And I mean, I think that the way that the logo came together, the jerseys and Hunter, I mean, he's a magician. Like the if you're wondering who's behind a lot of the design work, most of the design work with the Guelph jerseys, especially those new alternate third black ones that are a big hit. He's the brainchild behind a lot of that. And I think it was a good idea to kind of lean into almost like the campiness of
Yeah.
the concept, because that's what people really attach to, because at the end of the day it's really fun. But I think the other thing that a lot of people really enjoyed, I know our old compatriot Bill Granger really liked it, was the fact that you did this rebrand. It's one thing to do a rebrand and have it be for charity, and we'll talk about that too. But the fact that the rebrand tied into the history of the city, like I don't know how many people realized, I did, of course, but a lot of people I knew learned a little bit about the history of the fact that Guelph has a very innovative history, and the jockstrap was a big part of that. And it was invented here in the 20s. And that was a big thing too. Like, was that discussed right from the start? The fact that it had to tie into the history of the city?
It did, no question, and I think that's a little bit of a play off the Biltmore piece, the Mad Hatter's piece, because that was such a big part of Guelph's junior hockey history. So I think that's where that came from. Hunter, like again, I'd be stealing Hunter's thunder if I said, yeah, that was our thought from the get go, because it was Hunter that came up with it. But I think no question that was part of it, was that jock and what it meant to Guelph's hockey history, and coming up with even the fictional backstory that we tried to put together, that said, this is where it came from and stuff like that. So that was all part of it. And again, a little feedback we got even from the mayor. And the mayor was, I don't know if he wants me to disclose this, but the mayor came to me and said, I want to buy a jersey. We said, well, we'll get you a jersey. I said, I can get you a better deal if you want it. We've got a mascot. Do you want to go in the mascot suit? And he wrote me an email back and said, yeah, for sure, I'm in. And I laughed and thought, this is not going to happen. And I didn't reply. And I got a reply about 10 minutes later. He goes, no, really, I want to do the mascot for this. And it didn't happen. He had a ribbon cutting and stuff like that, and he apologized for it. But that again was because of what it meant to Guelph, because of the Guelph history and the jock in particular in this case. But yeah, a whole bunch of things coming together. But the jock piece was definitely with that in mind.
And also, you mentioned it, the fictional backstory of the old team, the Royal City Jockstraps, like tying in. I love that too, because you guys took an existing concept, an existing and proud part of the city's history, and as part of this rebrand, you kind of took that and ran with it and had your own fun with it. Who came up with the backstory? And if you didn't read it, like I don't know if it's still available on the website, but it was a pretty fun read.
It's largely me. I'm going to say, it's two parts, and I'm not going to lie. I'm an honest person. A lot of it was Chat GPT. And then taking different stories we got through Chat GPT, and then taking stuff and really blending it together with, my own thoughts in this case. A fan of historical fiction, I guess, is what I would be at the root of this. But I think it was important for us to do that. And our goal in doing that was that somebody somewhere would say, is this a real thing? And I did even see a release that came through that certainly framed that within, I think it was one of the sports logos through a tweet or something like that. And I clicked on it, read through it, and they framed it as if this was the real story, which was our goal in doing this. It's again, just having fun with it. That somebody somewhere would go, first of all, because the jock is the real thing, and there is obviously some real history built into that. But that somebody would scratch their head and say, was this for real? And I guess it must have been accomplished on some level. But yeah, that's how that came together as well.
Well, I will tell you, to your satisfaction, I'm sure, and everyone with the staff. I had a few friends reach out, a
Yeah.
couple of whom ended up attending the game on Sunday, and said is that actually a real team? And I was just like, they got you, man. They got you.
which
I
is
played
perfect.
along. I was like, absolutely, totally real team. Look it
Frosty
up on Hockey
Johnson
DB.
and
Yeah, Frosty John. We got to get some Johnson jerseys up there, man. It's
we
the
had the number
best.
up in the window. If you came in through our main entrance there, we had the Frosty Johnson number 7 up there, and we had McGrath. I can't remember McGrath's first name. Is a Buster McGrath, I think, the goalie. So we did have the jerseys done up in the window as people enter the building. Again, with that same thought that somebody's going to look at that and think, was this Johnson number 7 really part of this team that's not even a real team? So again, it was part of having fun with it, and we hope we did that.
Yeah, you certainly did. I think everybody was. I mean, even when I went down to grab this hat, I had to have one. The second I saw the logo, I was like, I need that. Got to be on my hat rack. When I went down there, I mean, this is an hour before puck drop on Friday night. There were loads of people in there buying the stuff. Like people ate this up, and a big part of that obviously was the jerseys that are being auctioned off. And tell us a little bit about how the idea came together with obviously first responders night on Friday and the proceeds from the auction benefiting victim services. How did all that come together?
So we've talked about doing a jersey event with. Oh, actually, we did in the past. Pardon me. We did a superhero one with Victim Services. I want to say last year, but I'm not 100% sure if it was last year or the year prior. So that's where that was. And we said we've got another concept to do a jersey, and it's a fit. And I think 2 years ago, or whatever they did it last time, they each picked a charity. What they decided to do this time was just do a single charity, which is great. I think it worked as a perfect fit for what obviously they do and the work that they do for our community. And that's so that was where it was kind of us leading them down the path because it did fit. It was a fun community thing as well. I think with the auctions, we're happy with it's going to get, and even in terms of the merchandise stuff, there's going to be a percentage of the merchandise that was sold that's going to go towards victim service as well, to where I think we'll probably get north of $10,000 donated to victim services, which is again, when we talk about the things we want to do as a team and community is a big piece of that, and even with the first responders, obviously with that tie-in it's such a nice piece to be able to sit there and write a check for 10 or 12 or $15,000 that benefits such an important charity to our community.
100%. And it was a lot of fun. I can't wait to see more of it in the future. I think everybody was really on board with it. So it was a lot of fun on the weekend. I always, when I have the players on, I like to kind of delve into their history. So I want to delve into yours. I mean, you're a big part of the front office. I mean, I know a lot of people in the stands maybe don't see much of you because you're behind the scenes, but now that you're on here, tell us a little bit about your history with the team. When did you first become involved with the Storm, and take us through kind of your hockey journey, if you will?
Yeah, I can do that just to kind of touch on the fan piece. I think what I found, and I'll touch on my history piece, the people that end up talking to me, generally it's because they're mad at something. So it's probably why I'm not out there as often as I can be. So that's generally the first introduction that I have to a lot of people. It'll be a complaint or something, and I'm the one that's kind of trying to put out a fire. For the people that know me, I mean, I guess I've apologized probably already because something went wrong. But it's nice. It actually ends up being kind of a springboard into getting to know our fans as well. So in a lot of cases, that's the first time I may have talked to the person, but it ends up being when I'm standing in the on the concourse watching a game or just kind of walking along. It's the start of a friendship in some cases, and because we have that common we both cheer for whoever it is. We cheer for the Storm together. So, as far as my history, it's a long history. It goes back to the old arena. So we are about to go into the October 6th, 2025. Here will be the 25th anniversary of our first game at the Sleeman Center. So now you're rewinding it back 25 plus years. So my first game was something like January 20th or something, 1999. So a different century. So I've been here a long time. I came here. Started with the Hamilton Bulldogs, the American Hockey League. I worked there. I reached out to Scott Housen, and who is now the commissioner of the American Hockey League. He was commissioner of or the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets for a while, and I know he was obviously connected to the Oilers for a long time. I was watching CHCH or something. I saw a new team moving to Hamilton. I just graduated or working through my 5th year actually of university. I reached out and said I'd like to get involved. I walked into the office, met himself, his wife, and there's about 4 people on staff at that point. It would have been kind of June of 1996 or something, 1997. And then I worked there at game staff, just like I've got plenty of game staff here, which is part of why, enjoy kind of mentoring in some cases the game staff that we have, because that was me 3 decades ago, or whatever that number is. And within about 4 or 5 months, they had some staffing changes, and I had graduated at that point. And they said, "Would you be interested in a full time job in the sales side?" So, which not really sure what I was going to do right out of university. I said, "For sure." I worked there for I think a year and a half, and the gentleman that managed me said is from Guelph, still from Guelph, and said he had an opportunity to buy a different junior team, and he was going to move it to a different community. He said, "I want you to go to Guelph, kind of learn as much as you can. It's a great opportunity. They're hiring. Um, Go up to Guelph and learn about it." And I did. And this is so my plan was to come to Guelph, move the team to the new building, which is obviously a big part of why I came here, because that's an experience that you don't get often, to take a team from the Memorial Gardens at the time into what was then the Guelph Sports and Entertainment Center. And then his opportunity to buy the team fell through. I've become quite comfortable in Guelph, and here we are 25 years later. That's my long but stable, I guess, if nothing else, hockey story in terms of how I got to Guelph, and how I've kind of continued to work my way, I guess, up, but doing a lot of the same stuff I did that. And then as new things have come along and staff has grown, the team's grown, and now I'm to the point where I have been for, whatever, 10 years or something like that, where I get a lot of autonomy, and our owners have always granted that to us as a staff. And I'm thankful for it. I don't know if that I could do it without it. If I had somebody, I know there are teams in our league where the owners are day to day, because that's their core business. Having the autonomy to do stuff like this promotion and other stuff we do, is a huge part. And I think it's kind of part of, the secret sauce of our success here, is that our owners have been very hands off and allowed us to do what we do, kind of trust our feel for this market, and make it work.
Well, and as one of the elder statesmen of the franchise, like you said, Matt, you've got a long and illustrious history with the team, and you've seen the team achieve a good majority of the success that it's had, especially as the Storm. Like you look back on all of that, and you've got to work with a lot of great hockey executives, and I know that you guys all work in tandem with them. I mean, currently you think about guys like George and Mike Kelly in the past, and Scott Walker, of course, who I know is still involved. Like you've gotten to work with a lot of really in-depth hockey people over your career. I mean, I'm sure that's been a really interesting process throughout your time.
It's awesome, and it's part of what makes this job fun. Again, and that's the two sides are working in tandem, kind of lockstep. It doesn't work. And again, it's something when you look around the league, and there's a business side struggling, or a business side. In our case, we go through George and I go through the scheduling. George would come to me and say, "Look, we know that a Friday night sells better than Wednesday night, but I think this year we had one, maybe two, 3-and-3s for our player, and it just gives the player experience. It makes the player experience a better experience. It's easier on their body. The hope is that the team is better because of it. So it's working in that, and having the confidence in what we do as a staff to say, look, go ahead, we'll do these some Wednesday nights. We're going to fill them up. We'll come up with a way to fill them up, and stuff like that, and breaking up those 3-and-3s. So that's just one example, but that goes all the way through from George to all the way back to, I think it was Alan Miller when I started. And then from Alan to Dave Barr, and through 4 different versions of even ownership groups, where you've got the trust, and you have to work together. I've been around for 3 championships, and back to 2004 being the first one. I was here, and a big part of the Memorial Cup hosting in 2002, and none of it happens unless the hockey side is working with the business side.
And it certainly has, like you said. I mean, like the team has had a lot of success, 4 total championships, most recently in 2019. And you talk about your expertise and your feel really for the market. And I feel like stuff like this with the jockstraps thing, and all the different promotions, and how in depth and involved the team continues to be in the community, is a big part of that. You look at the last couple years where maybe the team on the ice and in the standings has struggled a little bit, but the attendance has not. And like Mark and I harp on it like every broadcast, because we just feel so fortunate to be able to broadcast for a team and for a market like this. Like the fans, they support this franchise through thick and thin, and you don't get that everywhere. You really don't. So that's got to be incredibly special too. You talk about having that relationship with the fan base. This fan base just loves this team.
Yeah, it's something honestly. I don't think you can understate it. Just how lucky we are to have this. I'm going to say lucky, but I think in some ways it takes away from everything that myself and the team that I've had, and a lot of them have been here for almost as long as I have. I mean, Sarah Twigger, who's been here since 2004, I think, and she was the one that started a lot of of those community programs, and that's the community programs that were at that time reaching out to people that are now bringing their kids. So it's stuff like that. So I mean, luck is involved, no question. But I think what I hope is that it shows that the work that we put in, and there's a silly story I've told over and over again. It's about the a bamboo shoot. I don't know if you ever heard this. I guess it's a metaphor. It takes 5 years. You plant the bamboo shoot. It takes 5 years to break the soil. And Lindsay, my wife, will make fun of me for telling the story because I've told it to my kids. I've told it to anybody that started a business. It takes 5 years for it to break the soil, and then in 8 months it grows 90 feet after that. And the question is, did it grow 90 feet in 8 months, or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years and 8 months? And it's that stuff that's happening under the ground and happening, as we're building up what we built to get to where we are now. Like I look at the last 2 years, 3 years, and see full buildings, and people go, "What are you doing? Like, how are you guys doing this?" And this comes up at our league, and it's the same question you asked. I mean, there's lots of teams that can sell a lot of tickets when the team's winning. The teams that when you've got that little bit of a down swing, there's teams that have really struggled to do it. Um, but it's not necessarily what we're doing in the last 2 years. I think we're continuing to do good stuff, but it's a lot of what we've built in those, the 18, 19 years preceding these last 2 years. Even going back through COVID with different programs that we learned through that, which was a huge struggle. But I think in doing that, their ownership at the time retained all staff people. There's a lot of teams in our league that as soon as it happened, everybody was laid off. It was a struggle, but I think we continue to meet as a staff. We continue to, take feedback and see what was working and what wasn't working, and continue to stay in touch with the season ticket holders as well as we could, and sponsors. And we came out of that probably stronger than we were going into it, which a lot of teams did. And there's still teams that are, within the last 2 years are just getting back to where they were, but we passed that and sailed past that point, 2.5 years ago. But again, a lot of that's that work. And I mentioned Sarah by name. I mentioned Lindsay by name. Melanie's fantastic at what she does within our office. And it's just people, and there's others as well that just take a real pride in what they're doing. And it's not because they're huge hockey fans. It's because they're proud to be working for this organization, working for the ownership that they have, and all the owners we've gone through and stuff like that. And proud to kind of come in here and see exactly what you said to start this question before my long rambling answer. But proud to come in there and see the full building and see everything and see the experience. Because a lot of the people there, win or lose, they're still leaving happy. A lot of people there, if you were to ask them who we played tonight, when they bought the ticket, they don't know. They're coming because it's a Friday night and they love the Guelph Storm, or they love bringing their kids to the Guelph Storm. And for years and years and years, I can tell you, I wish I kept all the emails I got from people, largely from people down Highway 7, fans and stuff like that, that would come to our game and say, "What are you guys doing? You've got a bunch of screaming kids. It's almost like it's a black mark on hockey, because we're trying different things and trying to make it entertaining." And then here we are kind of 20 years later, and it's the same screaming kid is now bringing his or her screaming kid 20 years later. And I've seen that. And that's kind of just the nature of being anywhere, I guess, for as long as I have. But it's again, it's a real source of pride. And I think for myself and everybody on our team, that's the business team, that sees the results of that work.
Well, and that's the big thing, and I can tell you, from a personal standpoint, that trickles all the way down, or I guess I should say up into the broadcast booth with me. Like, I grew up and my family used to split on season tickets with my friends, and actually one of them, Tevin Salins, who typically is running the score clock at the Sleeman Center for games now. His family was part of that. We came to Guelph Storm games all of the time when we were little kids. I remember going out and doing the skates that you guys would do, and skating with Marty St. Pierre, and
Right.
becoming a Storm fan right away. And like, you were there for all that. You actually, I met you many years ago. I doubt you'd remember. My high school came and we did a walkthrough of the Sleeman Center, and you're the one that guided us through.
Oh,
So
wow, must have been an accurate tour.
yeah, it was. Well, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember always, if we weren't at the game, we would watch Steve Fitzsimmons and Bill Granger on TV, and Trevor Pryor. And I thought, man, it'd be really cool to be able to do Storm games someday. And here I am. They keep letting me come back.
Same
So
with me.
I can say that all the efforts that your staff made have trickled right down to somebody like me, and it continues to happen. I want to touch on another thing too. Obviously, you mentioned Lindsay Newby, of course, and she works very closely with our friend Lisa Delmatia, who I see them probably more than any other staff
Right.
member outside of yourself. And they obviously are a big part of this podcast. They help me book all the guests, including yourself. Those
Sorry
two,
about
like
that.
they got an energy, man. Like those two, and when they're together, I've joked with them before. I think that those two could easily do a 10-minute comedy routine at Yuck Yucks on an open mic night, man. They are something.
Yeah, it's hard to find them apart. Sometimes, and I'm sure I'll get in trouble for saying this. Sometimes I wish there would be a little bit more separation, but no question, they're stronger when they're together, working together on that stuff. So, and again, I mean, there's two more names. Well, I've already mentioned Lindsay, but Lisa, and again, it's a professionalism. We're fortunate, I guess, that we get to go to a lot of different league events, and we go to different and see and meet different staffs from around the league, and I think our staff's pretty respected. I think for the most part we tend to have a senior staff where people have been here and we've retained them, and that's not by accident. I think it's both ways. I hope they're coming back because they're enjoying it, not just finding a better opportunity. But I think it's also because we've made a choice to have them come back and kind of create that environment where I hope again where the staff wants to be here and wants to be part of what we're doing. Because when I go to the other, again, these meetings, I'll look around the room and there's a lot of teams that have a lot of new faces every year. And I think it makes it difficult to do a lot of what we're doing here. If I had to continuously train somebody, I think it takes away from what I'm doing, and it works, with everybody else on the staff as well. If they were training somebody else to do something instead of focusing on their job, I think you lose it as an entire organization. I think you suffer for that. So I think again, with the secret sauce thing in mind, I think that's a big part of it is having the staff we have, keeping the staff we have, wanting the staff that we have to continue to excel in their roles and be proud of what they're doing for whatever reason.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that a big part of it, like I said, for myself and the attachment I've always felt to the franchise, a big part of that also, when you couldn't go to games, you would watch and you'd hear Steve and Bill and Trevor. You talk about the longevity of the staff that you guys have, and you're at the very heart of that and have done a tremendous job and continue to do so. And it's a pleasure to work with all you guys. And having said that, that trickles over to us on the broadcasting side at Rogers. We see how hard you guys work, and we care just as much, every time we walk into the arena. And you talk about having a long time staff. You guys were treated to, for my money, I mean, one of the best broadcast crews in junior
Yeah.
hockey history. I mean, you had Steve and Bill for 21 years. Trevor was there for, I believe, 17 or 18 of those. Like, you talk about working with three guys that really cared. Those three guys are legends.
Yeah, and it's kind of all music to my ears to kind of hear that. I mean, that's what you hope to build, right? I mean, that's a huge part of it, and it's as teams in our I think teams in our league sometimes lose sight that we're not all mainstream, like we're not top of mind with everybody in our market. And Rogers is a big piece of what we do. Again, and as we do, there's programs we do where we've got all the, I don't know if you're even aware because you're obviously on the air, but we do the Stormwatch thing. So we'll do the different Stormwatch parties, and that's for home games and away games. Because I don't think for a second, I think of my lifestyle and the kid raising kids and going out to sporting events and doing everything I do. And there's no way I could make 34 games. And to think somebody could, or everybody could because they're a diehard fan is just not reasonable. So that's part of why we've done that program, because the Rogers product is so strong that we can go out if you're sitting down for a dinner with another couple and I'm at pick a bar and I look up on the TV and see a Guelph Storm game there. It just kind of again has that connection, and it's that full circle thing that I've talked about in terms of trying to be more mainstream. So the people are coming not just because the team's win or losing, but because you're top of mind, because you're a part of the community, and because you just want to be part of that atmosphere. Or if you couldn't go, you could still follow it. And that, again, the Rogers piece is a huge part of that. And I hope we haven't overlooked it. I think we try to be good partners as much as we can with Rogers, and there's still teams in our league, I think, that go, oh, geez, if our game's on TV, we're going to lose some fans, which is such a a narrow view. Again, in my opinion, where if you think your fans are the only, the 3,500 people that are at your game or whatever it is, are the only fans that you have, you've got a bigger problem than whether your game's on Rogers or Coach or Co or stuff like that. I mean, you want to have obviously as big a following as possible, and Rogers and Bill and Steve and Trevor, over most of my history with the team, are a huge part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they set the bar very high, and we all try and do our best to kind of reach up at that bar. And like I said, I mean, you guys, the staff, yourself, everybody involved with the organization, so easy to work with. Like Mark and I always say, we walk in and our job's pretty simple, man. We just walk up there and run our mouths for 3 hours
And you
and
have fun, and you have fun. And
oh,
again, that goes back
we're
to the original
trying.
conversation. Yeah, it goes back to the original conversation that we had. I was worried that some of the traditionalists would sit there and say, "Oh, what do you?" And we did get some of that feedback that, "Oh, it's a bad thing that we're doing the jock straps." And I know there's been people that have said, "You guys have too much fun when you're listening." I can tell you, if I'm watching a sports newscast in the morning, I want to see two guys that are having fun and not talking about it like it's life or death. It's an escape for 2.5 hours from the busyness of my everyday life and any other stresses that I have going on. I can sit and enjoy two people calling a game, having fun and entertaining, and watching a good product. So it's a huge part. And like I said, again, it's a compliment to what you guys do. And it circles back to the original conversation about the logo on your hat there, the jock straps, and just doing it. Have fun for a night or two nights in our case, and looking ahead, more nights.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I feel the same way. Like I love sports. I don't just watch hockey. I watch a bunch of different stuff, and like it's entertainment, man. I would rather be having fun. I mean, even if maybe the team struggles at times, like I would rather have a good time up there and pump the kids' tires, especially at junior. We want to have fun because no matter what, I love the Sleeman Center. I always have. I have a long history with it and attending, and it's just a fun building to come hang out at. It doesn't matter, if the team's in first, if the team's in last. I'm going to have fun up there and try and relate to everybody that it's a fun place to be. And like I said, working with all of you guys with the team, how can we not have fun? It's a good time. It's just a bunch of good people to work with that are excited about doing their job, like you touched on. And why would we not be excited as well? It's you make our jobs pretty simple, man.
Yeah, and I can't wait for it to be fun again with the first place team, and I look forward to that happening
Absolutely.
soon. So it'll be
Absolutely,
at
and it
next
will.
level. Yeah,
It
next level.
will. It absolutely will. I want to close by just asking you, what has this all meant to you? Like when you reflect back as we have on your long tenure with this team and watching all the ups and downs, what does it mean to you?
It's great. It really is. Like there's been games that I quickly talked with standing in the concourse and watching it, and I again know where we came from, and I know the struggles we had in the early 2000s. I mean, we'd fill a building a few times a year, and to kind of look down and think that I've had a part in that. Some people, how much of the part of it, it's kind of to be debated. But it's to know that I've had a part in building what we've built here is a real source of pride, for sure. And again, it's why we do what we do. We want to do what we do because we're good at it, and continue to learn, continue to try things, and entertain people, which has been fun.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a lot of fun back when I was a kid to watch it and experience it from that end. And it's incredibly fun and enriching for me and Mark and Ryan and Isaac, our whole crew, to be in that building and be a part of it every night. It's incredibly awesome. You guys are the best staff in the league, in my opinion, to work. I'm biased, but
Hey, I'll
um,
take it. Like I
you,
said, most people are complaining to me, so I'll take that compliment.
well, they shouldn't be. Come on. And we have the easiest time having fun up there, man, because of how well taken care of the Guelph Storm franchise is. Matt, thanks so much for
Thank
doing this,
you.
man. It's been
It's
a
fun.
blast.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Have a
Absolutely.
good one.
Remember, everybody, you can find this podcast on the Guelph Storm website, okay, which you should be a regular visitor to, okay? And you can find us on YouTube, all your favorite podcast apps. And if you want to come down this year and watch the Guelph Storm, which you should definitely do, and in future years, go to the Guelph Storm website or the box office at the Sleeman Center for tickets. We will be back next week with more Eye of the Storm.